I have been working with parents who were separating, especially parents with really young children, since the mid-1990s. And during the last 5 or 6 years, I've been doing research on this topic. So that's my background. I've been traveling now a few days in your beautiful country, and I have realized that there seems to be a certain interest in Vikings among Scottish people. I've had so many questions about Vikings, and people have told me about their ancestors who were Vikings and so on. And I thought about the paternal role, or the male role in Sweden, which is nowadays rather more like this than of a proper Viking. Being emotional, being present. We call the new Vikings sometimes fathers who birth, bleed, and breastfeed, because it happens that they call the child healthcare centers going, this is, and the father's name, and we gave birth last week and we are still bleeding. So we just want to know if this is okay or not. And I can I just want to say that our breastfeeding works fine. So that's the type of Viking role we have today, and the type of involvement that is considered normal or natural among Swedish parents. And I think that is part of why shared parenting arrangements have become so popular and so common in Sweden in particular. Approximately 40% of all children with separated parents in Sweden have exact 50-50 shares. But this is increasing so quickly, so it's difficult to really keep up with the numbers. Just a few weeks ago, we were checking in the Stockholm area, which is a fourth of all children in Sweden, children who were 3 years old. Shared parenting arrangements were more than twice as common as single care, or living mostly with one parent. And it's also less common to have exactly 50-50 shares among that young children compared to school-age children. We had an increase in shared parenting arrangements after a legislative change in 1998, as you can see. It was increasing even before, but that really made a difference. And I noticed that because that was when I had started working with young parents who were separating. And it really made a difference, these changes. And the same type of change in an increase of shared parenting we have seen, for example, in Belgium and in Australia. A majority of Swedish children live with both parents. This picture isn't very good, but 11% of children between 12 and 15 years of age live only with their mother, and 2% only with their father. The rest, 87%, live either in shared parenting arrangements, in nuclear or intact families, or mostly with one of the parents, but still have a home with both. Around 25% of our children have separated parents, less, of course, among the youngest, the preschoolers. Around 14% of the parents who separate go to mediation, and about 2% resolve their cases in court. So those are very low numbers. Lots of people just make agreements in between the two of them, which is probably because there are few incentives of having, there is nothing financially to gain for a mother in Sweden or so. It's just a norm that you agree and share. I think the family politics and the political strivings of gender equity in parenting is where the frequency of shared parenting comes from. And the the laws for the parental leave have been gender neutral since 1974, which is quite a long time. And parents today have a legal right to stay at home the first 18 months, and of those, 16 months are paid. And it's 8 months for the mother and 8 for the father, and 3 of those are exclusive for each parent. So 5 of them you could give to your partner. Parents also have legal rights to work part-time until the child becomes 8 years of age and stay at home with sick children until they're 12. And about 25% of the parental leave is used by fathers, which is during the first 12 or 18 months. And 36% of the sick leave days for children is used by fathers. We also have a system where children normally go to preschool between 18 months and 5 years of age. I think 85% of our children go to the tax-funded public preschools. But I think the most important prerequisite, or the most important reason why shared parenting has become so common in Sweden, is that women work, they participate in the labor force to nearly the same extent as men. So it's normal for families to have dual incomes, and it's possible after a separation to have like 2 family homes because women have their own incomes. And I don't know if the co-parenting as a norm is a result of these of the things I've described now, but that is how it is. We just published a scientific paper that we named after a quote of one of the parents we had interviewed, saying, "Why should they live more with one of us when they're children to us both?" And these children were only between 6 months and 4 years of age, and it was just considered something absolutely natural that children need both parents. So I don't know if the politics have created this norm or where it comes from, but it is evident that it is there. Someone else we interviewed said that if one of my friends would not share parenting equally after a separation, I would find it so weird. They would be considered unusual. So this is how people reason. We know from other research that early engagement of a father in a child's life, it increases the chances of a continued engagement and involvement in parenting. So, and I think from these interviews, I realized that it is probably important to get to know the child already when it's little, because some of the fathers could describe when they've been on parental leave alone with their children and suddenly realize that he needs me. Something said click, and you know, the adult version of or the adult answer to the child's attachment needs going, oh, this is someone I could never abandon. And this is also evident if parents split up, that this is someone who needs me and I need to take responsibility for. Our research project is called Elvis. It's a play with words for the Swedish word of Vex Elvis, which is shared parenting or joint physical custody. And the aim of our project is to study well-being, mental health, social situation in school-aged and preschoolers in shared parenting arrangements. And we started 2011 to study school-aged kids, and since 2 years we are now into preschoolers, which is most controversial, maybe. We have, and together with others, conducted 11 epidemiological studies on school-aged kids, and we have also studied children's living conditions, which is interesting because they differ between different living arrangements after a parental separation. And we have done 2 studies on preschool children. Our first studies were the largest. We have done 3 total population studies on all 12 and 15-year-olds in Sweden, and they were about 172,000. And I will show you the pattern now that we find in all our studies. It doesn't matter whether we study preschoolers from 3 years of age or older kids, but in all our studies on Swedish or Nordic materials, the pattern looks like this. We see, regardless of outcome, we see that children in nuclear families have the lowest proportion of symptoms or ill health. And that often there is a very slight difference between children in intact families and in shared parenting arrangements, whereas children who live mostly with one parent have an increase in symptoms, and the group that is most vulnerable are those in single care arrangements. And psychosomatic symptoms was particularly interesting since that is a proxy for stress. This was headache, stomach aches, sleeping problems, feeling emotionally low, etc. And we were surprised that children who were actually moving 50 times a year between the parental homes, still suffered from less stress than those who only lived in one home. And we think this is related to the relation to their parents. I'll come back to that. I'll just show you 2 more slides. This is well-being or health-related quality of life, which is an outcome that is very relevant for children. This is all aspects of children's lives. How school is, how their parents are, their friends, their leisure activities, etc., etc. And we see the exact same pattern. Children in single care arrangements had more than double the problems compared to those in nuclear families or joint physical custody or shared parenting. And the third picture is mental health, and this is a risk comparison between children in nuclear families and those in different living arrangements post-separation. And you see that the risk increase for children in single care arrangements is 30%. So this is the group we want to take particular care of. As I said, we think that an explanation why children in shared parenting arrangements fare better compared to those on a group level, this is epidemiological studies, compared to those in single care, is because they rate their family or their parental relations as better than, because obviously parents have a chance to be good parents because they participate in their children's everyday lives and they actually take care of them. And this is also something that we see in all our studies, that they state that they have good relations with their parents and they think their parents spend time with them and things like that. Finally, I want to show you this picture because for some of us it might be a bit unusual or uncommon to have a father being in the bed with a newborn little baby and the mother is doing something else in her nappies. And the father seems to be like the main person in this room, and he's so happy about his child. But I think we shouldn't think that this is something that we should do for fathers or for mothers. This is for the sake of children. And if a close parenting from both parents benefit children, that is important, and that is the message I want to convey. And we know from extensive research that close parenting from 2 parents has a certain value for children. Thank you very much.